Hello, and welcome to today's on-demand learning webinar. Today we're going to be looking at decorating for the holidays with Classpad.net. My name is Amy Chow, and I'm the National Training and Product Manager for Casio's Education Division. And we have Dr. Karen Greathouse with us today, who will be presenting from Classpad.net. So
hello, I'm excited to be here, and in spirit of decorating for the holidays, I've had included a background that's very festive because I'm feeling very festive today. So I am going to share my screen now, and I'm going into Classpad.net. Let's make sure I have the right one. There we go. Hopefully by now everyone knows what that is, but that is our Casio's free online web-based software. And so my goal for today is just to show you lots of different ways that you could use this tool to just have fun, or if you want to have fun and also reinforce mathematical content, you could do that as well. So I'm going to show you lots of different ideas, geometric transformations, and then also just equations. It sort of just depends what's your goal. If you're just trying to kill some time, let's admit it, at the end of the holiday break, we are sometimes just trying to keep the kids going. So maybe that's all you want to do. But if you really want them to learn and stuff, there's other ways. So that's my goal. So here's Classpad.net. We're going to just call this decorating for the holidays. And under the assumption that some of you have never seen this before, this is an online web-based software. Students, teachers, free. And when you click anywhere on this blank screen, this is what it looks like when it's blank, you can do lots of different things. You can do calculations, graphing with functions and those types of things, geometry, statistics, all of this stuff. We're going to focus right here with graphing and geometry. And again, depending on what your student's level is or what you're trying to get out of this, there's lots of different ways that you can use these to have some fun with the holidays. So I'm going to go to geometry first because this is probably the easiest, especially if you have younger students. So let's think elementary. So this is what we call geometry sticky. And you could literally, young students, maybe you're just exploring shapes and you could say, use your geometry tools and make a holiday decoration. So down here are my holiday tools, and we're just going to go with a circle because what's everyone think of? Snowmen. So you could just have, depending on the age of your students, just have them draw shapes and make holiday decorations from that. And I am going to do one thing. So Classpad automatically in the geometry will label the points. And if I'm trying to do an artistic, decoration, I probably don't want my points labeled. So up here, you'll see
you don't want those extra letters.
I don't. They drive me insane.
Yeah.
I wish it was not the default, but apparently it's the default. So when you go up here, settings, anytime you see three dots in Classpad.net, that usually means settings. So here's settings for geometry. If I look over here into the top right corner, that's settings for the whole paper. So I'm going to turn off this auto labeling so that I don't see the letters. So I'm going to turn that off. So very simple, young kids, they just want to do a snowman maybe. So they could start with that, and then they could make another circle, and then they could make a smaller circle. So pretty easy, except my circles are pretty terrible in size here. I like my snowman to have a smaller head. So that's really basic. You could just have them do shapes. So this is a polygon shape. So maybe they want to, make a tie, a bow tie, and you can change the colors. Excuse me. Let me do that first. I'm going to change it to a black and then go back to my polygon tool. So now maybe I want to make a bow tie for my snowman. So they could have a lot of fun just by using shapes, right? So there's not a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Complexity here. If you just say, use your geometry tools and make some kind of shape, that's all you have to do, right? So that's pretty easy. I could put some eyes on my snowman. I could make a smile out of coal, add some more buttons. So that's pretty basic. You're not really asking them to define what they're doing. Why did they use that? That's kind of an elementary basic, but you could make it more complicated or more of like an assessment or a fun thing. So I'm going to open a new geometry sticky. And let's say this time you're in a geometry upper grades and you're saying, I would like you to make a holiday picture, but you can only use polygons. And so then that eliminates the ability to use circles, right? Because circles aren't polygons, and hopefully they know that. So now they have to only use polygons. So then maybe now they're really working on what are polygons and which polygons will help me make shapes and stuff like that. So then they could use the polygon tool. And again, let's remember to turn off our labeling. And so now I'm trying to think of a fun shape that they could use with just polygons. So maybe they want to make like a tree. So let's change let's change the color. Let's make triangle is for a tree. You know, that's usually our basic shape. And then maybe I need the trunk of the tree. So they could, again, be creative this way. But now they're only using polygons. So you've made it a little bit more content related, right? And let's do another one. Let's make some presents. So now I'm using, why isn't it letting me do it? And I could put ribbons on there. There's lots of things you could do, right? So I'm not going to belabor the point, but here's a segment tool. That's not a polygon, so I actually need to make it be. So if you're a teacher and they did a segment, you could ask the question, is that a polygon? And they're like, no, a polygon needs at least 3 sides. So you could really kind of reinforce some properties just by asking them to do something simple. Like, so what kind of ornaments would have to be on here if they have to be polygons? So they could do, you know, we could make a polygon star, right? And I'm not very good at this star, obviously. Okay, that's not horrible.
That's not too bad.
All right, so that's a polygon. So that would be another fun way to use your geometry, your drawing capabilities, your polygon tools, but focusing a little bit more on understanding of content. So they're only using polygons. I have another one. So then what if you did, I was going to show you another way is be really creative. So I'm just going to keep opening geometry stickies here. This is a nice thing about Classpad. You have unlimited space, so I can just keep opening things as I explore. So another one I was thinking of is, you know, we have these tools down here. We have circles, but we also have arcs. So how could I incorporate an arc? So what kind of holiday decorations or objects have arcs in them and not necessarily circles or the full circle, and then polygons and segments? So there's lots of different ways I could do it. So I wanted to show you another idea that I had, and this is involving concentric arcs. Actually, let's use black. And let's again turn off the labeling. See how much easier it would be if that was not the default. I wouldn't have to always remember. So I'm going to use the arc tool. So the arc tool is very much like the circle tool, but this time I'm trying to make, so my goal here is to make a candy cane. So a candy cane has that arc at the top and then it's, you know, straight segments. So let's make that arc of the candy cane. So the arc tool works very much like the circle. You hit a center. And you'll notice it looks like I'm creating that circle, but then wherever I decide to start my arc, you'll notice that only the arc comes around. So I am going to stop there and I'll only see that piece. And that looks like a little bit too much, right? So I want maybe more of a 180
circle. Yeah.
So that's one. And I want concentric. So concentric means they have the same center. So now let's make one that is a little smaller, kind of ends there. So there's part of what I think is my candy cane. And then maybe I want to use segments. And obviously my candy cane is tilted, but that's okay. So you could really have kids be very creative in what they do. And let's connect here. So here's my candy cane, right? And here's another nice thing about Classpad. So I used that center point to help me create the arcs, but I don't want them anymore. So one of the things you can do at the end, let's say you don't like all these points, I can actually select things. So notice that I am selecting them. They are highlighted when they're selected. And go into over here to the right are my options, and you'll see this word visible. This lets me hide objects that I've selected. And so I don't want to see this anymore. So now it looks like a much better candy cane. So what's missing from my candy cane? My stripes, right?
Stripes.
So how could I do my stripes? So you could do your stripes just using segments, or students might say, well, let's make it red. I could use the polygon tool to do my stripes, right?
If you want thicker stripes.
Because I want thickers and I want to actually see the colors a little bit. So then, let's see if we can do this here. So I'm going to use, and I'm not going to do all of them. I won't bore you with all of them. Why isn't it letting me do that? All right, I don't know what's going on here. It doesn't like that point for some reason.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just try something different here. Let's just do one up here. And then, how do I go around the curve? Well, the curve's a little different. So maybe I want to do a triangle around the curve. So there's lots of different things you could do, but so we've used arcs, concentric circles, we've used segments, we've used polygons. So lots of different things you could do there. I'm still sticking in geometry, but let's say you want to even challenge them a bit more and have them use transformations. So let's pull up another geometry sticky, and a really simple one that I was exploring was a snowflake, and using a reflection to help me create a snowflake, because the snowflakes are symmetrical. And so you can turn axes on. And so I kind of like to turn them on so that I am putting things exactly where I need them to. So I'm going to turn on the axes. So all I had to do is go into settings, click axes. I don't need the numbers. I am going to turn on a grid. And down here, you'll see this word called snap and fixed. And that just means that when you construct something, it snaps right to a perfect grid, because I want my snowflake to be perfect, because that's what I like. So I'm going to hit snap so that it snaps. So here's what you see now. So now I'm going to make a snowflake, and I'm going to do a really simple snowflake just using segments and actually vectors, which you'll see in a minute. So I'm going to keep my color. The default's always blue. I might make it this blue because that's more snowflakey. And now I'm going to go in and first make a segment that's going to be where I'm going to reflect. So I'm going to put my segment right on the y-axis, which is why I constructed the y-axis. So there's my segment that I'm going to use as the reflection line. And now I'm going to design my snowflake on one side. And I'm going to use, it's a little hard to see. I have segment tool, line tool, ray tool, but I like the vector tool when I'm thinking about snowflake, because the vector tool actually has these arrows, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to just make a snowflake design. So maybe I do. And so, oops, well, we'll leave that one there. That's fine. So you see, I like it just because to me, it looks more snowflakey if you do that. And actually, we could do two reflections. Let's do that. I'm going to go back to my segment tool and make a segment here as well.
Oh, nice.
All right. So
like
notice,
yeah.
I feel like I need to add another one, another line somewhere. This one doesn't look long enough.
There we go.
There we go. So I only did it in one quadrant, but now if I'm being asked to use, transformations, I'm going to use a reflection to fill in the rest of this shape. So what I would then do, if you're going to use, constructions, I want this design. So notice I'm holding down my mouse and kind of making a box around the things I want to reflect. So now notice that they're highlighted. I want them to reflect over this. So I'm going to go choose under construct, my reflection. And up here at the top, you'll see it says select a line. So I'm going to reflect first over the y-axis. And there's my snowflake on that side. Now I want this whole thing to be down at the bottom. So I'm going to select both quadrants this time, trying not to select my x-axis, and do the same thing, construct, reflect, and now this time I'm going to reflect over the x-axis. And there is my snowflake. And here's where I can go back into my settings and turn off all the things I use to help me see things. And there's my snowflake. And you could go in and hide, the points if you wanted to, but that was using reflection. So there's so many ways that you could use the geometry tool, and you could get more complex depending on the level of your students or where your students, what they've been studying, so that they have to use things. There's just one more I want to show you with, I was playing around this morning with this. Let's turn off points again. Dilation is a cool way to make a Christmas tree. And so what I did is I made a triangle. Let's turn it green first, just to be exact. And I made a pretty small one. And actually, let's move that down just a little bit. And then I made a point, because dilations require a point of dilation. So I was playing around with, do I want the triangle to get bigger or smaller? So I was going to go, I want it to basically get bigger as we move down. But I want my point of dilation to be above it. So then I made, let's change just a point up here that I might use for my star. So now I'm going to dilate this shape. So to do dilations, you select the object you want to dilate, and you're going to go into construct and you choose dilation. And it asks you, where's your point of dilation? So I'm using a point that's not on my shape, but just slightly above it. And then it asks me, what's your scale factor? That's what it's asking for. And I want the dilated one to be larger. So let's do something like 1.5 and see how that works. So it makes a slightly larger triangle underneath it, but now I have sort of like a tree. So now I want to take this second one and do the same thing. And before I do that, notice that it comes up with these kind of labels here that I don't necessarily need to see. You can do this at the end or as you go along. I like to do it as I go along. And you go into visible and you choose, don't choose object because it's going to hide the dilated object. You want to choose the measurement. And I usually like to hide this too, but we'll leave that up there. So then that's now gone. So now we're going to do the same thing to the second one. And you can just keep repeating. You could change the dilation size if you want, but always use the same dilation point. So what happens if I do 1.5 again? So I could keep doing that. So they end up with a tree. So I could do it as many times as I want, right? So that I now have a tree that's made from dilations.
Nice.
And you could even change, the size if you want. And then you could add other things. And then, just for fun, you could change your colors. Let's do red and just use the point tool and put some decorations on your tree. Clearly, I was having a lot of fun this morning. Yeah. So just ideas here. And I think that's the last one, just the last one I wanted to go to. I did, one more.
There's all sorts of things you can do.
There's so many things. So I'm just trying to give you ideas, but you could do rotations too. So what's a rotation need? And let's change this to green. A rotation needs a point to dilate around, right? And I'm turning off my labels. So I'm going to put a point somewhere. It doesn't really matter what. And then I am going to make a shape. So this was just something I was thinking. So let's. And now I'm going to dilate the shape, not dilate. I'm going to rotate this shape around to make maybe a wreath. Just a thought. So select my shape, go to construct and rotate. And notice again, it tells me what I need to do. What's missing? I need to select a point. And now it wants to know how far do you want to rotate it. So you could change your angles. Let's do something that's going to go pretty quick. And so then I could continue and it would make a wreath and then I could put polygons on. So there's lots of things that you could do. And depending on, where your students Or you could challenge them, try to make something that only has polygons and uses just rotation. So lots of different interesting things you could do. The last thing I wanted to show you was, I know that I used to do this a lot when I was in with my middle school 6th graders, we were learning about coordinate points and stuff. Let me just pull this in. Can you see that, Amy?
No.
Oh, interesting. Let's see if I can figure out. Sorry, I'm trying to get, I don't know how to get them both in.
I think you have to share a screen versus sharing a window.
Okay. All right, can you see this screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So another thing, I'm sure any math teacher over the holidays has done these coordinate, graphing pictures where you give them a grid and then they plot the points and blah, blah, blah. You could do that in geometry as well. So remember, up here in settings, you can turn on the grids, you can turn on the axes and the numbers. And once you do that, you could even put on a minor grid. And let me get my picture back. Might need to, I kind of wanted them both at the same time. Can you see them both at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. So once you get your picture back, here we go. Kind of, this would be a great exercise in helping students figure out what's a good window and what are my, what axes numbers do I need here? And do I need to change the size of my screen? 14.0, well, already I'm not there. So they could do a couple different things. They could zoom in so that they see the 14 and then just start plotting points using the point tool and then connect with line segments. So you could do something like this on the dynamic software too, something basic like that. So that's another possibility of the geometry tool. I did want to go in before we end here that, again, this is depending on the level of your student, but graphing is also a great way to really challenge students, especially those in the more advanced classes, because parametric equations and polar equations create some really fun graphs. So I just wanted to show you a couple ways to explore. So I'm going to start, this is the graphing tool right here. And when it looks very similar to the geometry, when the geometry had the grids on, but you'll notice at the bottom, we don't have those geometry tools. Instead, we have places to write functions or put in data, even add images in, which you can also do in geometry. But this is another way to challenge students at the more advanced level, is come up with different types of equations, linear functions, polar equations, depending again on the level of student. So I wanted to just give you a couple examples of things that I've done. So I hit the function and you'll see that this comes up. You can change the color. And so I'm going to leave it. Actually, let's change it to this lighter blue because we're gonna work with a snowflake again. And so just as in geometry, the 3 dots mean settings. And so when you're in the graph, notice you can turn off the axes, which we're going to do at the end, but I want them on at the moment. But notice down here at the bottom, I can change to parametric or to polar. So I'm going to click this one first. And so now I'm going to enter an equation, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can explore this. So I'm going to actually enter in a very specific equation. So notice that my soft template comes up here, and I need theta, not an X. And so I'm going to use the math button here to get other options. So there is my theta that I needed. So when I hit execute, oh, that's really big. So let's zoom in a little so that we see that. There we go. So there's really simple snowflakes, but I can add to that. And actually, I could change the color. We could make it be a wreath instead if I changed it to green. Let's do wreath. That might be more fun. And so let me add it. So you can kind of layer these. So you could really have students explore. So my next one is R equals 6. And I can type in sign, or I can use the template. Using the template puts those parentheses in automatically for you, which is kind of nice. And then let's do one more. And let's make this one. And so that was really small, right? So kind of the center. So this is just a different way. But what I wanted to show you is, okay, so I have this specific design, but I can go back up here and change any of the values, like the 10 or the 6 or the 6 or the 4, whatever I want to be a variable, and I can explore. So I'm going to make this one be a, and watch what happens. Now I have a variable that I can change, which then changes the size of that function, right? And so then I could explore and really kind of experiment with what design looks the best. So we could do the same thing up here. Let's do B. Negative, what's negative do? So once they have something, they can explore and really come up with very creative designs. And then why did that happen? You could ask those types of questions. But so polar coordinates is a really fun way functions. Another one is parametrics. So let's pull up another graph. And I love these a lot. I explore with them a lot. I have 3 different ones that I've kind of, or actually 2 different ones. So I always, Amy, you need to help me if I get this wrong. I think I have to click this one.
Yes.
So we're going to go into functions again, and I can't remember if this is, I forget which one this is, but if I want to get a parametric equation, that needs to use the template right here. So you'll see, here's the math template that comes up the minute you hit the function. And here's the one that I'm looking for. I'm looking for this right here. And so notice it's basically just a template that you're filling in once you click this. So you're going to put in your different parametric components. And this is the default for the T, and I'm going to change that because I would like it to be on both sides, and that looks good. So let's see what happens when I do that. So that is a circle, and it's not what I wanted. Did it not do my times? Maybe I don't need to do the T because it shouldn't look like that. So let's see if turning the T off changes things. That is weird.
That is weird.
Because that's not what it's supposed to look like. Let's see what happens with my next one. Is it because I didn't use cosine here? I typed it in by hand, maybe? I don't know why it's not working. Let's see if using the actual makes a difference. It shouldn't, but. Huh. I don't know what's happening here, because that's not supposed to be what it is. I had a much better picture unless I copied it wrong.
I think you're missing something.
I feel like I must be missing something.
Because one of the examples I've seen before, if you subtract on the first equation or add minus cosine of.
Yeah, let me go back and do this.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and this one has a different parameter here. I think I did 20 to negative 20. Oh, no. This was right. I forgot what I was doing. That one's right. I forgot the end result. I was looking at that So this is basically just like a silly wreath. You could change the colors. That was just something silly. But there's lots of ways you could explore, and you could, again, do the variables and see what happens as you change each of these. So it's a great exploration. This is one of my favorite ones that I love to do. And again, I feel like you don't need to hit that T. I could be wrong, but it feels like you don't have to.
I don't think you do either.
We'll have to ask about that.
Yeah.
So I love Parametric because there's so many incredible designs that you can do, but this is one of my favorites. And this is a wreath. And it's fun to explore what happens with the numbers. I guess I didn't really need all of those parentheses, but it's okay. I like symmetry, so you'll notice that I'm using the same, 45T or whatever. It does look different if you change those. All right. That's my favorite. So then you could have students, okay, so here's this wreath. How could you make it bigger? Could you put a ribbon on there somehow? So use different functions to put a ribbon. So maybe then they're using linears that are defined, like X between this and that to make the function. So there's so many things you can go with. And you can then, once you're done, have them turn off all the axes and the grids. And then they actually just see oops, I forgot to turn off the numbers, but
yeah,
those darn numbers, labels, there we go. So just fun things. And if I zoom out, it gets a little bigger. Lots of fun ways to explore. And depending on the students, you can make it really complex, or you could make it really simple. Geometry versus graphing. So those are just some ideas, some fun things. Students are insanely creative. So just kind of giving them some basic directions and then letting them go, you will be amazed at some of the things that you see. And then you can print them. If you go over here if you select, notice that there's something selected. So this one's not selected. If I select this and I go to, I believe actually it's print up on the browser.
Yeah, you got to use the browser printer. And it's not the most accurate because it's going to leave space.
Oh, I forgot. And
but your settings
I have it in black and white, but so there you go. So then
but
they can print it too,
yes.
And if you make it really big, it'll be bigger. So that's fun too. If they want to print them out, especially if they're younger, they love to take them home to mom and dad. So.
Yeah. Well, in this one too, this example that you just shared, you can change, the numbers, the coefficients there, and change them to A and B like you did previously, so that you can play around with sliders a little bit, and then have a conversation about, what are your, domain range for that.
So you can make it as complex or as you want, or just fun, depending. So that's it. That's all I had to share for right now.
So I had a fun one that I did too for this. You made a candy cane using concentric circles or arcs and then trapezoids, but you could also kind of do something similar with actually, why don't I just show you guys?
I was gonna say, show us. Boy, my face feels like it's on fire.
With what am I gonna say? Our equations and then inequalities actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that is another way in the graphing that you can get
to do a little bit of shading
in there. A little bit of shading is using inequality. So again, that's a challenge that students really have to think about between where and where do I have to color to make sure it fits. So again, fun things that you can do and make them complicated or simple.
So here, let me share. I realized it didn't actually turn out. I didn't shade yet, but you could do the shading.
So she used, and so look at all the equations that are going on there, and there's limits. So if you notice, that's a really cool thing about this too. You can actually limit the this would be the domain, right?
Domain or the range
and
or
so
whatever.
to make only certain parts of those functions show up, the vertical line, the horizontal line. So that is really cool. And then change the color.
Also, like these equations here, these linear equations here, are good conversation about like shifting and function families as well, and having students explore that.
And so one of the things, if you're trying to figure out like, how do I shade in, you know, between two of those red things and shade it, it would end up also limiting your Y. So like if you made, just do one, pick one of the red ones. Like,
remember which one that equation is. Oh, there, it tells me down here.
I was going to say, so click that one and make it greater than.
Right.
Well, make the first, let's just explore one.
Okay. So we'll do now greater than on this one, or greater than or equal to. And you'll notice I'm using my keyboard. So I did the greater than symbol, then the equal symbol. And then it automatically combined the two. So
watch what happens. It's going to, it shades in like all of it. So you don't want it to, you only want it to go up to whatever that line is, that equation. So then you can limit in the, but what you want, you don't even need to do that in your first equation, in the first inequality at greater than or equal to, you have to now also limit the range, the range. So now next to, I think you have to put a comma.
Oh, can I add a comma?
Yeah, I think you put a comma and then you do the same thing. So I don't know what our Y range would be. It would be between.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder to figure out.
But it's harder, but it can be done. It's like between 0 and 2, I think. I mean, just try it. Let's just see what happens. So maybe. You'd have to play around. It probably requires equal as well. So I'd probably pick the wrong numbers because I can't see. If we had the grid on, it might be more helpful.
You could go back and turn the grid on.
But that's something that not other softwares allow, is that you can actually limit both the domain and the range, whereas most other dynamic things only allow you to limit the domain. So you can do both on Classpad, which is really cool.
So it looks like it's like -4 to, let's try -4 to -2. Nope, it's still.
I wonder if you have to do equal to.
Do I have to put another bar?
Oh, maybe it isn't. I don't remember. I haven't done it in a while. So
yes, that's what it is. It's another bar.
So it's not -2 to, it's -2 to 3. It's -4 to -3. Try that. Huh. Oh, we'd have, anyway, but you can do it. But that would be like, think of the challenge that is.
So the easier way to do it would then
just do the
inequalities in between.
Yeah.
We get rid of that. Oh, why is it not deleting? There it goes. All right.
But the whole point of this is to just say, you really could challenge students.
What you also do need to do is come here to inequality plot and show just the intersection. We'll need to change that.
Idea.
Yeah. And if we change that, that should now change.
Look at that. Amy is so smart. So much smarter than me.
So that's the other thing too. You can set up the equations and then have your students come up, with, and have, like Karen said, leave the grid plots on, obviously, but then, they can turn them off afterwards, the grid and the axes and everything.
But that's a much more challenging.
This is a definitely much
geometric
more,
one,
yes,
right?
It is. It is. But this does
really thinking about domain and range. So maybe that's what you're doing. Maybe that's what you're helping students really solidify.
Yeah.
In a fun way.
And of course, the fun thing about coming down here is when you're changing it and you're having to change, like, look at this one, you can look at the intersection points of that red line and, that line before you add in the domain and range, and the circle.
Yeah.
Or the half
So
circle
much
there.
fun.
Yeah. So some other fun, neat stuff there. So, all right. Well, thank you, Karen. Let me
Thank you, Amy.
change my screen to this. Can you see the PowerPoint now?
I can, yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a lot of equations. It took definitely a little bit of time. So that would definitely be a fun kind of homework or in-class assignment for, little groups or whatever.
Keep some quiet for a while.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us on this on-demand webinar. We hope you picked up some few tips on Classpad.net. And of course, this is just really more, winter holiday focused. There's all sorts of things you can do. You can, try to make Easter eggs, using different shapes or, doing decorations for that. We've talked about, creating decorations for St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, making hearts, different things like that. So there's all sorts of, ways you can expand on this for the different seasons and throughout the year. Okay. So follow us on social media. Remember that Classpad.net is a free account or free software. So registering for an account will let you save any papers that you see on the website and lets you duplicate them and save a copy. So make sure you sign up for an account so you can save your work. Your students can save their work as well. So please be sure to go do that. And we hope you guys enjoyed.
All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Karen.